Okay, now we are on to logistics. And I want to talk first about the menu format that you use. Again, this is getting now to the nitty-gritty of how you really implement these plans that we've been talking about. So there are a lot of options, believe it or not, for how you actually display and record your menu as you're developing it. So you could just use a simple wall calendar and write in your menu into that. Many people just print off a monthly calendar and they use that. If that is where you lean, I have included at the back of your workbook several blank menu pages so that you can just print these off if you need to, if you like that analog menu. You can also use a digital calendar. I did that for years. So I used just the iCal on my phone, and I had orange was the color I designated to my specific menu calendar, and I just plugged in all my dinner menu items into that calendar so that I would know from day to day what I was making. This was great because wherever I was, I could access it and figure out what I was making for dinner that day. It was great in a pinch at the grocery store. I'm like, oh shoot, what do I need for these meals this week? So that was a great solution for me. And then I would also use a little hack there, and once we had something on the menu that we liked, I could say, I think we're going to feel like having this again in 2 months. And so I would just change the date on it and reschedule it for 2 months. Sometimes I'd set it as a recurring meal item every 2 months, or every month sometimes if it's something we really loved. And then when I went to go plan my menus for the week, I could see some pre-populated menu items in there already from things that I had just put into the future. So that was kind of a great way to do it. So so just to tell you why I don't use that anymore when it was such a great system, I really started to get annoyed because my children, even when we were eating breakfast, sometimes they would ask me what was for dinner. And I don't know, for some reason that just really drives me crazy. And so I needed something that was more visual than my personal calendar on my iPhone, so that they could see what was for dinner that week or that day. So I moved to, first I started just putting it up on the whiteboard, and I would just write the days of the week and what we were having. Several moms I talked to also do that on a chalkboard or a whiteboard. But then once I started using these note cards that we talked about earlier in the last lesson, I just take these out and I just put them on magnets on the side of my fridge. So the kids can look up there, and I usually put the one that we're having that day on top once I decide, and they're like, oh, I don't have to ask Mom what's for dinner because I can see that it's right there on the fridge. So we needed to move to a more analog system so that it was more accessible to everyone in the family, and so that I don't have to be annoyed about dinner from the starting at breakfast. Because my kids are asking about it. Another method is to put these cards in photo sleeves. That's what Kara does, and she puts them also on the side of her fridge. I'll show you pictures of her system when we get to her case study, and that's another great way to do it. So anyway, really you just have to decide if you want to go digital or analog, whether you're going to use an app to keep track of what meals you have on which day, like Janae does, or whether you want to have a more physical analog system. Okay, we talked about this in our logistics section a lot, what materials you want to have on hand when you're doing your planning session. But also when we're talking about this planning session, I want to talk to you about when you set this planning session each week. Again, the most successful people, the most the moms who are the most successful at regular meal planning are the ones who set themselves an appointment, a specific date each week, where they sit down and reserve that time to plan their meals. Otherwise, it just kind of gets pushed in with all the other things on your to-do list, and you're ending up scrounging and looking in the fridge like a zombie when it's time to figure out what to eat for dinner. So again, I'll just run through these really quick. The things you might want to have on hand when you're actually sitting down are the calendar, your computer, your phone, a whiteboard if that's what you use to write it, your meal list, your cookbooks, your ads, whatever you're using as the basis to plan your menus. One consideration you need to make when you're figuring out when to have your planning session is when you will have time to go grocery shopping, and when you know what your schedule is going to be for the week. So you need to make sure you pick a day where you'll have all the information you need to be able to make a realistic and usable meal plan. Okay, the next thing to talk about is shopping. We talked about this a little bit. Some moms have a set shopping day. Some moms don't. Sometimes it's just different every week and there's no set time. For me, it's Mondays. I like to start my week off with food in the house. And because I plan every 2 weeks, I am able to alternate which grocery store I use. So one week I will use King Soopers, which is our just like regular grocery store. And the next week I will go to Sam's Club. And obviously same thing with Costco if I had a Costco close. But for me, it's King Soopers and Sam's Club. And I alternate every Monday so that I can get the things that I need specifically at those stores at least every 2 weeks. And that's a great way for me to do it. Some people like to go to both every week. My friend Sarah Hauge really enjoys Sam's Club, so it's fun for her to go once a week. And then she has her husband do the regular grocery shopping. So things to think about are which stores you actually go to, and be realistic here. If you don't really plan to go grocery shopping at a certain place, but you end up going there once a week, factor that into it. Think about how often you'd like to go to each store and how you make your lists. So again, there's analog options and digital options. You could just have your grocery list on your fridge that you just add to when you need to. I've done it on the computer from time to time where I just have kind of a standard list of what I buy at each one, and then I fine-tune that each week for what I need, and then I revert back to that saved original list for the next week so that I can see what I'm out of. So that was a really convenient way to do it when I was using that method. Now I just keep it on notes in my phone. So I just have a King Soopers list and a Sam's Club list, and since I have my note cards with the ingredients, it's pretty easy to just add things to those lists. I also involve my kids to make my list, and I'll talk more about my specific methods later, especially for lunch. The kids help me make the grocery lists. So when you're thinking about this, think of who's doing the shopping, who's helping you unload. I've started doing my grocery shopping at about 2 o'clock on Mondays so that I go to the grocery store and go straight to pick up my kids from school so that they're all there to help me unload them. That takes a lot of the time away from an already extended process. This is actually a new system for me as well. I used to rely almost exclusively on Walmart to go, and I would do the pickup. So I would do all my shopping online. I didn't even need to make a list because as I needed something, I'd just add it to my Walmart app. And then on Sunday nights, I'd just click and order, and then I'd pick them up Monday morning after I dropped the kids off at school. I loved grocery pickup, and it was perfect for that time in my life when I had little kids and just so much going on. But now I only have one 4-year-old at home, and he really enjoys an outing to the grocery store. He likes to push that little cart, and it's just a fun thing we can do together, so we've changed our system. And now I actually walk into a grocery store. So again, another example of how your system changes over time and your strategies change too. I've provided these lists here in your workbook so that if you want to make lists of things that you buy exclusively at each store, you can. Sometimes this is a good one-time exercise just so that you are more aware of what you're buying on a regular basis, and that can help you know what you can stock up on, and it can help you consolidate your trips. You could also do what I used to do and keep that running list on your computer. Janae Koo uses kind of a form of that with an app that she uses, and we'll go into that when we're talking about case studies. The next thing in your workbook is your actual meal list. So I'd really like you to take the time, whether you have a list or not already of go-to meals that your family likes to eat, I'd like you to take the time to kind of write out some of your favorite meals. I've given you space for 40 here, which is quite a few actually, so you may not even fill it up. This is just a refresher if you already have a list, so that you can add things that you maybe haven't added to your main list, or take out things that you're tired of, or just look at where your gaps are. Maybe there's a type of food, a type of cuisine that we've talked about today that you'd like to add in. Just having a list of all the things you already make will really help you to figure out where you're going. So I want you to at least put 10 down, 10 meals that most of your family or even everybody in your family likes to eat. And these can be as simple as individual foods, like they like steak, they like broccoli, they like cheese, or it can be complete meals like tacos, lasagna, omelets, but only include meals you've actually made and that your family actually likes on this list. There's another list of meals to try, and you can, there's notes on the back that where you can add those too if you have a lot of meals you want to try. But I really want this meal list to focus on meals that you actually, that kind of your tried and true list, your core meals. Here are some of the questions to get you thinking. What have you eaten this week or this month, if you can remember that far back? I'm usually like, a week is as far back as I can go. What are some of the traditional foods from both your family and your spouse's family that you have incorporated into your regular rotation? What do you like to order when you go out to eat? It doesn't so you can kind of fudge the rules a little bit. Maybe you haven't actually made it, but maybe you know that everybody likes it. You can put that on this list if you want. It's totally up to you, obviously. And then what types of geographic cuisine do you like? I'm hoping some of these questions might make you think, oh yeah, I do make that, or just think of some of the foods that are in your rotation that don't always spring to mind. So this will be very helpful. You can totally forgo this list and write them on note cards if you like this system. That's another great way to do it, if you don't want to have to write it twice. Another category I'd like you to think about are, what are your quick and easy meals? These obviously may appear on this list too, but in our family we call those babysitter meals. We happen to have 2 babysitters now. My 2 oldest sons are old enough to babysit, and so these are things that they know how to make, that they can just pop in the oven in a pinch, things like that. So things that are on my list are things like taquitos or spaghetti or frozen pizzas, just the real quick and easy. If either your meal plan has failed for the day or something came up and you just don't have the time, these are things you can just pull out and feed your kids in 10 minutes. This is a really useful list to have because that kind of stuff happens all the time. And quesadillas, other things like that. And then another list of items to have always on hand for those meals. so that you always have a backup. This is your plan B list, so that in a pinch, you know that you've stocked your freezer with some extra taquitos or corn dogs. These aren't the most healthy things that I'm mentioning, but you can adapt it to your healthy lifestyle if you are healthier than I am. And again, I mean, we don't eat that every day, but in a pinch, those are very good. Another source for you as you're filling out your meal list, I've included meal lists from myself and Janae, and these are just some jumping off points so that you can see, oh yeah, hamburgers. I didn't think to put hamburgers on my list. Obviously, we make hamburgers once in a while. So you can just kind of look through ours. If you see something you want to add to your meals to try list, great. If you want to, if there are things that you've already tried, add them to your meal list. Maybe we don't have the same taste at all, but I just wanted to give you a resource so that you aren't just starting from scratch and trying to come up with meal ideas. I'll include links in the course materials to some of the recipes that I have on here that I've gotten from other sites online, so that you can try any that strike your fancy. I've gotten a couple of requests from people who have taken my in-person workshop for some of the recipes, so I'll include some of the ones that are most requested, just as another recipe source for you. So that wraps up our discussion about logistics.